Psalm 15. I can't say it's my favorite psalm because I have like 25 favorite psalms, but it is one of my favorites, and I love talking about it. Uh, Here we were last time we talked about who does no wrong to a neighbor. This profile, and it really is a profile of behaviors that reflect the character of the person who can live in intimacy with God, experience this close personal connection to God. I personally believe that all of us as human beings have within us, by God's design, a hunger for relationship with Him. I even, to the extent that I believe our single greatest human need is confidence that we have peace between God and us. Now, what about people that don't know about God, don't care about God, people who've never heard about the gospel and the God of the Bible? Because those people do exist. Well, generally, that's not the world I live in. I live in an environment, a culture, a city, state, country where very few people have never heard about the God of the Bible. But a lot of people who have heard have no real regard for Him. And in fact, the truth of the matter is most of the people that I have interaction with fit in the category of they have heard enough about Jesus and about God's design to have made a decision whether or not they would follow God's design and make Jesus the owner and director of their life. Many of them like the idea of Jesus. Andy Stanley says that there are a lot of people that have a crush on Jesus. And this is very true. What a good man. What a kind person. And they love the idea of the goodness and kindness of Jesus. They just kind of don't want Him getting in the way of what they would like to do in their life. Oh, these are even church people. These are even sometimes people who will tell you that they're full-on Christians and truly love God. But they kind of live as though they don't want Him getting in the way. Boy, that's a big rock to throw. And I don't have any right to say, well, I live my life so well under the authority of Christ that I can make this judgment about it. No, I don't have any right to judge anybody. The most I can do is make an honest observation. So there you have it. The person who fits this profile, a character profile that is demonstrated by behaviors, is a person who is committed to the design of life that God has given. And as a result of that commitment, there are things that they do and they don't do. Like, for instance, verse 3, their tongue utters no slander. We've talked about that. He goes on, who does no wrong to a neighbor. And that's where I camped out last time, talking about who is your neighbor and how do you do no wrong to your neighbor. Now he goes on and says, and cast no slur on others. This is kind of, to me, if you take this word picture literally, to cast means to throw. So they don't throw a slur on others. What is a slur? Well, now, when I was in grade school, junior high, and first part of my high school years, I was a trombone player. A slur on a trombone is a wah, easy, right? In terms of human relations, a slur is an inference. It's an innuendo. it's not really saying it outright, but it's implying it so clearly that it can't be missed. The people who tend most often to cast a slur, in my experience, are people whose number one technique is passive aggressive. To your face, lovely, accommodating. Behind your back, they slice and dice. Everybody I know has experienced that. And for all of us who have experienced it, it's not a happy thing. And let's be honest, there are times we have done it ourselves. Sometimes it comes out as, well, I don't have any right to, I've said this lots. I don't have any right to throw a stone, but, and then I'll offer a juicy tidbit. Well, that's casting a slur. See, the point of a slur is that whatever I can say in terms of a slur would somehow devalue the other person. But it doesn't stop there, because my status will always be in comparison to their status. So when their status is reduced, guess what happens to mine? It's elevated. This is pride. And this is the kind of pride that God says he hates. The person who will have this intimate relationship, this close, deep, personal intimacy with God, does not cast a slur on others. It would be wise for every believer to set up a monitor in their own mind and notice when you begin moving toward a slur. Often slurring in this way is a very subtle thing, and sometimes we don't even realize that we've cast a slur until we look back on it and think, oops, that may have been a slur. My advice, you didn't ask for it, but I'm going to give it. My thought is we don't have to live our lives in such a way that we cast a slur without knowing it. We can learn to be self-aware enough to realize when that's happening and to stop it. So, you can't do that without a growing measure of self-awareness. And we have at our disposal an advantage and I hate to use the word tool, but we have this advantage that the readers of Psalm 1 in King David's day did not have. We who are followers of Jesus have the presence of God in us, the Holy Spirit, who guides and directs and convicts and convinces us. He can and will, if we ask him and then partner with him, bring to our awareness when we begin to cast a slur. He can bring to our awareness after we have, when we would normally just go on and never give it a thought. Invite him to do his work in your life. And then, verse 4, who despises a vile person but honors those who fear the Lord. I love the idea. I first heard it when I was a kid, and I think my mom is who first said it to me, that we hate the sin, but we love the sinner. This is a great principle and very difficult to follow. Now, it's not hard for me to hate the sin and love the sinner when that sinner has not committed that sin against me. But when that is a personal thing and their sin has dinged me personally, well, yeah, I hate sin and I hate what I feel like, and I struggle because I do not like you when you did this to me. This is a process of maturity, of growing to be able to separate the sin from the person, the behavior from the person. And it's difficult. But David writes, I despise this person, the one who has intimacy with God, despises a vile person. That doesn't sound much like love the sinner, hate the sin. It sounds like despise the sinner. Let's set it in its full context. The whole thought is they despise a vile person, but they honor those who fear the Lord. So that you have this balance of contrast. You have a vile person. What makes a person vile? Well, their attitudes, their thoughts, their behaviors. And we can somewhat discern a person's attitude, but we have to be honest and say, I can't know your attitude. I make some educated guesses about your attitude. What? On the basis of your behavior. So these vile people act in concert with their vile attitudes and values. What is a vile attitude and value? Well, simply, these are things we could, I think, somewhat replace vile with malignant. It's morally diseased. Vile is repugnant. Vile is, they're putrefied. Vile is nothing good. Vile applies to nothing good, but always to something bad. A vile person is the person who has constructed their life around broken and negative, evil, wrong values. Boy, I have to be very careful. I'm going to suggest that all believers would need a caution on this. I have to be careful that to observe a vile person and notice their behaviors and notice the vileness of their behaviors is different than me judging a vile person. And so one of the things I'm learning at this stage of my life is a lot of times when I think I'm making an observation, I'm really just cloaking a judgment. And I don't need to judge people, but I have to be aware, observant. I have to pay attention. And so, okay, you notice the vile person because of their words and their behaviors, their actions, their deeds, and what comes out of their mouth. We despise that, but we honor those who fear the Lord. Now, in my mind, in our world today, in my world, I'll just put it that way, this has to do with role models as much as anything. Think about who are the role models for young people today. Well, generally, the promoted and accepted role models are the glamorous, the wealthy, the successful, the famous, and many of them are sports figures or actors. They are musicians. They are in the public eye. Occasionally, perhaps a politician, but you already know they don't go very high on my list. We promote our young people emulating successful people. Is that wrong? I don't think that's wrong, but it is possible for us to have the wrong estimate of what success consists of. And we're going to talk about that next time when we get back together on So Care with Stevie Boy.